All music was when I say, I always feel like it's a very deep statement.
Here we are.
Want me to do it? Almost there.
Nice job.
All right. Sorry for the delays. Thank you, power outage.
Yeah.
Reset everything.
Thanks for everybody for your patience too.
Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to open the Yamo County Board of Commissioners formal informal session for September 29th, 2022. It is 10:15. And if you are joining us online, we had some technical difficulties, so we are starting a little bit late this morning. Jody, since we all think you're a really big deal, will you lead us in the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, commissioners, so that brings us to our calendar session. I think we had the McMinnville Scottish Festival on there for this weekend, October 1st and 2nd. We have AOC District 6 meeting on Monday, October 3rd from 10 to 2 in Salem. And then we also have some meetings, committee meetings next Friday as well.
AOC committee.
AOC. Mhm. And then I'm not sure if anyone is going tonight or this afternoon to the Historic Landmarks Committee meeting, but this is kind of a come forward for the Gwendolyn Hotel. It's kind of a big deal. A lot of people in McMinnville are talking about it. So that meeting is today at 3 o'clock at the Civic Hall in McMinnville. It's to discuss, whether or not these historic hotels should be demolished for a future hotel. So I just wanted to add that because I do intend to sign on at least virtually for that. Anything else for the calendar?
Just the YCAP event this evening, but I think it probably was already noticed for last week.
Okay. And then just a reminder, we have is it technically a public hearing for the CPACE next week?
It's a work session.
Work session, okay. Okay. Moving on to public comment, item D. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, a quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. I didn't see any written testimony come in. Is there any public testimony online or in the audience for anything that is not on the agenda or is not part of the public hearing later? And if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing none. I am going to, Commissioners, I'm going to move up our public hearing, item J, before our department update so that we can be as expeditious as possible here. So I will open the public hearing. This is docket number SU-02-22. A similar use interpretation of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance YCZO to add the following use: operations conducted for the exploration of aggregate resources subject to the requirements in section 404.10 to the list of permitted uses in the RC Recreation Commercial Zoning District. This request was also subject to site design review and the mineral resources exploration permit standards provided in section 404.10 of the YCZO. Applicant is Turner Rock Products, LLC. The appellant is Kenneth Mills. Are there any abstentions from members of the board?
None.
No, Chair.
Okay, seeing none. Are there any objections for the board to hear the jurisdiction of the matter? Any objections to this? Okay. Do any board members need to announce and state on the record any substance of ex parte contact?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Nope. Okay, hearing none.
And no potential conflict of interest.
No potential conflicts. Okay, we will have our planning director, Ken Friday, read his required statements.
Yes. Oregon law requires that persons who attend a land use hearing be advised of certain rights and duties before the hearing begins. First, with regard to standards for approval, state law ORS 197.763 sub 5 requires that we list the applicable substantive criteria that must be met in order for the county to approve the application. The standards will be listed by county planner in a moment as part of the staff report. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards the standards for approval. Second, the raise it or waive it rule. Under Oregon law, any issue that might be raised in an appeal of the county's decision in this matter must be raised before the record of this hearing is closed. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board based on that issue. Third, and this is directed to the applicant, under ORS 197.796, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval, again with sufficient specificity to allow the county to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Finally, I will note that under Oregon law, and because this is the initial evidentiary hearing on this matter, Any participant, that is anyone who submits oral or written testimony during the hearing, may, before the record is closed, request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The request must be made prior to the time the chair announces that the hearing is closed.
Thank you. That brings us to our staff report.
Yes, and before we go into the staff report, I had asked for this to be pushed up on the docket because yesterday we had Friends of Yamhill County submit a letter with several issues, and one of them being notice to other RC recreation commercial zones. In talking with our legal counsel, we're wanting to make sure that there's not any sort of procedural issue on any land use thing that on this application. So we're going to be asking the board to continue this request to November 3rd, 2022 at the point of staff report so that we don't end up going through this twice. And so that's our request at this time.
Okay, so the purpose would be for notification to anyone in an RC zone.
Anyone in the
Okay.
RC zone and areas surrounding those RC zones.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, I will make a motion to continue docket number SU-02-22 to 10 o'clock a.m. on November 3rd of 2022 in room 32 of the county courthouse. And the hearing will reopen at the point of staff report. Is there further discussion or concerns on that?
No, Chair, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Thanks,
I
Ken.
appreciate, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, thank you, Ken and Lance, for making that decision.
Yeah, I think it's very appropriate. I appreciated in looking through the Friends of Yamhill County letter. I was very grateful that you were willing to take that on, listen to it, and then check in with
Mhm.
county council here. So I want to make sure
Sounds
we
great.
get this right.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, and thank you all for coming today
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank
We want to make sure we get it right. So.
you. Thanks for being here.
And hopefully we will see you all again.
Yes.
Well, not all. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be fine if you came.
Okay, I don't know if I technically closed the public hearing, but I don't close it, right? It stays open
I think it stays open
Okay.
because the
Okay.
continuation.
technically.
Thank you, Lance.
Thanks, Lance.
Thanks, Lance.
Okay, so I'm going to bring us back into our formal agenda here. We left off at item E, which is department updates. There are none today. Item F, work session. We have no work sessions. Item G is consent agenda. We have several items on there. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Commissioner Kula moves approval. Is there further discussion?
No, Chair.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes. Item H is old business. We have nothing under old business. Item I, other business. I1 is consideration of approval in the matter of amending Board Order 22-304 to add an additional tax lot to the tax foreclosed property auction list. And this is regarding the order that we took up last week, and we're just adding a property to it.
Mhm. Chair, I move.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve item I1.
Okay, Commissioner Kula moves approval. Is there any further discussion or questions for Jody or Christian? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item I2, consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement number 73000-00005220 between Yamo County and the Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, for Phase 2 of the Oregon Route 18 Newburgh Dundee bypass project, effective upon approval with an end date of 5 calendar years following the date of final execution. And we had this in front of us, I believe, last week, but there were a couple of tweaks made to it. Ken, did you want to address those?
Yeah, I can talk and then
Okay.
I'll also look to Christian on some of the other changes to it. This was brought forward as a request from ODOT we were having some communication issues, but there was a meeting that was held, I believe it was last week, with representatives from Odot. This isn't looking for funding from the county. There is a financial obligation as far as assuming the maintenance. This is all about realignment of Winooski Road. And so Mark Lago, Ken Friday, Christian, and I joined late, were able to meet and get the agreement edited because there were some revisions as far as the project manager and some of the terms, and Mark was able to pose questions that he had around the responsibilities. And I'm sorry, Commissioner, you were at that meeting as well. Yeah,
Did a lot of listening.
right. That's what I get for being late. So what you had before you, that the meeting satisfied Mark's concerns, answered a lot of questions that Mark had as far as the maintenance responsibilities. Mark would be here today, but he's off today. So, but you know, he's satisfied with the agreement, and he gave me the green light that he didn't have any concerns.
Great. Okay.
Chair, I'd move approval.
Okay, Commissioner Starrett moves approval of item I2. Is there further discussion?
No, Chair.
No, other than I cannot wait for this to be built because the traffic on 99 between Dundee and 18 is horrendous. It was backed up all the way today, very early in the morning. So, and most of it is 18 traffic. Most of those folks are trying to get onto 18. So, okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of item I2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item I3, consideration of approval of the corrections made to the OSU Extension Services District LB1 form and schedule of appropriations. And we have Kelly with us today. Welcome.
Kelly.
Did you want to address this? I see it's numerical errors and omissions, but if you wanted to address that real quick.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I regret the error, and I regret that I had to use everyone's time and learning and moving forward with the attached letter and the corrected LB1, as well as the corrected schedule of appropriations. We're doing what we believe we need to do as outlined in the state guidebook.
Okay, sounds great. Commissioners, any questions for Kelly?
No, thank
No,
you
Chair.
for catching
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank
Nice
you.
to see
thank
you.
you.
Nice to
Good to
see
see
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will move approval of item I3. Is there further discussion?
No, Chair.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes. Item I4, consideration of approval of a grant agreement between Yamo County and Sheridan School District 48J for the Support, Design, and Professional Services Program activities for Phase 1 of the Barbara Roberts Career Technical School Project in the amount of $1,400,000, effective for 12 months upon full execution. And this is the actual grant agreement that comes from the decisions that we made with the ARPA funds. Ken, anything to add to this particularly?
I don't think so.
Pretty straightforward.
You know, we were able to, Carrie Martin, thank you for all the work and working with the school district and getting this agreement put together, and it's before you. And then once this agreement, if approved, then finance and I will look at releasing the funds.
Send in a big check.
Big check.
We'll probably, yeah. We probably won't write a check. It'll probably be a secure transfer.
Yeah, there was something recently where we got a check that I'm trying to remember a big check.
Unless you want to do a big check.
Right.
No.
It was a
Well,
small
that
check,
would be
small check,
fun.
big
Right.
amount.
Okay,
Well,
well, I'm
you.
excited to see this come forward.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Commissioners, I will move approval of item I4. Is there further discussion or comment?
No, Chair, but this is good to see. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item I5, consideration of approval of a letter to be submitted to the Oregon Health Authority Public Health Division regarding the repeal of COVID-19 vaccination requirements for teachers and school staff. And this was added by Commissioner Starrett. I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Oregon Health Authority, the Public Health Division received a petition to repeal the COVID-19 vaccination requirements for teachers and school staff. And this has impacted volunteers and parents who wanted to volunteer in the school and teachers who've chosen not to be vaccinated. And it's really had an impact not only on staffing, but on just the stability of the staff there. So Oregon Health Authority was asking for public comment on the rules. The deadline for submission is end of business tomorrow. So the letter before you basically says, and I'll read it briefly, the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners urges repeal of mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations for teachers and school staff. Oregon students are facing 2 years of learning setbacks. Scores in reading, writing, and math fell dramatically during the COVID-19 school disruptions, adding to already low scores for many students who were falling behind. Currently, according to OHA Rule OAR 333-019-1030, teachers and school volunteers are still required to be vaccinated. Some school districts may be offering religious and medical exemptions, which allow parents and family members to volunteer in classrooms, but many districts aren't allowing volunteers at all, or only allowing those who have proof of vaccination. The CDC guidance states they do not differentiate between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. This means that OHA rule is no longer following CDC guidance and the science and should be repealed. Schools should be focusing on getting students back just on track academically. Parent volunteers should be in schools helping with learning and easing the staffing shortage. It's time for OHA to remove the permanent vaccine rule currently restricting who can work and volunteer in Oregon schools. It's time to allow teachers to focus on our students and allow volunteers into our classrooms regardless of vaccination status. The Yamhill County Board of Commissioners urges a repeal of OAR 333-19-1030. So I'm asking the board to consider signing on as a board unanimously to this letter to be submitted to OHA.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. We have a friend we heard from yesterday that she's a mom with young kids, and she wanted to volunteer in her children's school to help with field trips. And she was required to show proof of vaccination just to enter her child's school. And mind you, these are public schools that we pay for, and she can't even enter the school. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I am in full favor and support of this letter. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Yeah, and I would say that I think that I've heard less from about the teacher and more issue and more about people who want to volunteer in their children's or their grandchildren's relatives' schools. And we all know how important that is as part of like a holistic and comprehensive education. So yeah, sounds good. I thought you wrote it like really held to the like careful and yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. So
Okay.
I would.
Thank you for being aware of it.
Thank you. I would move approval of item I5.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes. And if we can get a copy of that letter, a signed copy, that would be great. In the deadlines tomorrow by 5, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Carolina
Carolina's
knows.
got the nod.
She gave us the nod.
Carolina knew yesterday. She said, got this handled. No worries.
Okay, so we moved item J, our public hearing up. So we are now on item K, which is announcements. Let's see. I have a few announcements. So we had our lipstick meeting yesterday, and as part of that meeting, we had a Measure 110 update. And it's interesting because this Measure 110 has been the subject of a lot of discussion lately, especially with the gubernatorial races. It seems to come up in every debate, and I've been watching how they're responding. But we had some alarming statistics come out this week, which basically say that it's an abject failure. The statistics are that less than 1% of the folks who, I'm just going to say quote unquote offenders, people who are coming through this class of violations are actually accessing treatment. So I think it was 0.85% are actually accessing treatment. And the other statistic that was quite alarming was that 81% of the tickets that are issued, so the fines in lieu of charges or whatever, they're simply ignoring the fines, they're not paying for them, or they're just not coming to court. They're not showing up for court. So there's absolutely no incentive for them to do so. And if they don't, we can't get in front of them. Provoking Hope can't get in front of them and actually have an interaction and encourage them to seek treatment. So this was brought up yesterday in the lipstick meeting. It was very interesting to hear that Director Manfred acknowledged that we actually have not seen an increase of people coming through our services, which was hoped for and expected. That's not happening. A couple of the comments from some of our judges were that they're under the impression that law enforcement is simply not citing anymore, because why would you, right? If people are, only 20% of people are actually taking it seriously, why would you go to that trouble? And also they acknowledged the no-shows and the high rate of no-shows. So there's concern within our judicial branch and obviously within public health that the expectations of Measure 110 are absolutely not coming true. And now we're on the verge of seeing another, $300 million come out of for this measure, or for the response to this measure. And if we haven't seen results so far, I don't hold out much hope that we're going to in the future. So that was pretty interesting. Obviously, you know, if there's no consequence to these drug crimes, then what's the point, right? I mean, people aren't going to respond. And what was really sad is that I think it was upwards of 80% of these quote unquote offenders are either on meth or they're on heroin. So these are very serious drugs. It's not a crime to suffer from addiction, but oftentimes the use of that comes with other crimes that are very serious and should be taken seriously. And so I'm not sure where we go from here, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we are not seeing benefit from Measure 110 at this point. Any questions on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just wondering, are you suggesting that there's other serious crimes that aren't being followed up on? You at the last statement you made, and that would be concerning to me. We are funding our sheriff's office well. I hope that I assume that they're taking on those things and taking them seriously.
Like property crimes associated with drug use, that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to get more information on that.
Our DA's office showed this, they flashed it up on the screen, a chart of how the cases are breaking down. I can try and get a copy of that and send it around. But it was really interesting because it showed how many were being dismissed. And I think there was only like 4% that were being able to be tracked to some type of treatment program in Yamo County. So in the statistic I said for 1%, that was a statewide study from coming out. But
you had just made the connection between not a police officer not citing somebody and other serious crimes not being addressed. And I just wanted to make sure that that if there's a charge of burglary, that those are being followed up on, or are they just
right? And I see what you're
suggesting
saying.
A police officer is like, oh, I'm not citing you for this, I'm also not. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I'm trying to. So if you assaulted somebody, right, and you were also in possession of methamphetamine or whatever, they refer to it as the trailing crimes. Those are not being followed up on to the point where there's no interaction between public health or Provoking Hope, which is kind of our subsidiary, and those individuals. So for the purpose of Measure 110, not for, if you committed assault, we're not following up on that, but for the purpose of Measure 110, those are not being, the promise of that is not being met.
So because they're not citing, then there's not a connection made between the Behavioral Health Resource Network and the individual who is being charged with another crime.
Yeah, because they're not showing up for those particular.
Well, it sounds like they're not being cited.
That was a comment made by one of our judges. I
Mhm.
don't have anything to
I've heard that in
confirm
other
that.
places, so
but-
that's why.
Okay.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
you said that, I was like, oh, this is confirmation. I've heard this in other places.
Yeah.
The League of Oregon Cities, I think, had a presentation that suggested that as well.
Yeah, and I understand the push and pull there that you don't want to make addiction a crime. I understand that part, but one of the comments was that oftentimes it's forcing those people to come into the system where they do meet the services that is more effective in some ways. And so anyway, it was a very interesting discussion. And then a member of the OHA team, it was the Health Justice Recovery Alliance, Ron Williams. He gave a very lengthy presentation after we had gone through this discussion, touting Measure 110 and seeing how wonderful it is, and we're going to keep going. And it's just, I don't know, there's a significant disconnect between what's happening on the ground. So I just wanted to report that back.
Chair, can I jump in here with
sure.
something regarding Measure 110? You know, the way it was sold was that it was going to provide opportunities for more treatment and
Mhm.
more treatment opportunities. And I think everybody, you know, thought that would have been a good idea. And it hasn't turned out to be that way because, you know, I'm certainly not, I'm not a big proponent of criminalizing, you know, drug use or decriminalizing. But I do think that that the opportunity to interface with the systems that can save people's lives. Oftentimes you hear people who've been incarcerated for short amounts of time were able to kick their addictions and then be connected with services. We see our drug court, Yamhill County Drug Court is the 4th oldest in the country. And I've seen the results of people who go in, are forced to go in, and how their lives turn around. And when you don't have that sort of velvet hammer to say, hey, come into the system, then you're just basically allowing people to continue their addiction. And ultimately, we know there are 2 ways that addiction ends. And left untreated, it leads to insanity or death. This is not a loving response to people suffering from addiction. So I think this has been a failure. And I know it's hamstrung a lot of the efforts that we've all tried to provide.
Right. And part of the discussion and kind of to Commissioner Kulo's point was that we're almost being forced to separate. You know, if I'm high on something and I assault someone, those should be treated together because it's cause and effect. And we're being forced to separate the two so that there's only a sort of judicial response to the assault. And we're not addressing this because now there's no incentive to address it. So it's like, I'm not sure that actually gets the results. And obviously we're seeing that it's not getting the results. So. The other thing I wanted to bring up, there was the where they do the Oregon by the numbers yearly. This comes out, and I think the MAC Chamber actually sent this out to everybody. But some interesting points on here for Yamhill County. Our total population is just over 106,000. Households in financial hardship total 54%, which is really quite alarming if you consider that 15% of that is below poverty, and they're reporting that almost 40% is below ALICE, or basically below being able to keep up with just the basic cost of living in terms of the relation to your income. Some interesting points. We have a higher rate of child poverty than the state overall, and even in the urban areas. With 16.3%. Our voter participation is quite high, 81.8%. That's on par with the state. Labor force participation rate is 59.1%. That's pretty alarming when you factor in what we're facing in our industries. And then also just to kind of confirm what we already know, the childcare slots per 100 children, we average 10, very low, based on in comparison to Oregon, which is 15, in urban areas, which is 16. So we have obviously a large childcare need in this county.
And it doesn't split it out, but my understanding is that the for babies, I forget that category is exceptionally low relative to other areas.
Okay.
And we
That's
know that the
interesting.
West Valley in our county has, maybe a lower population, but a higher per capita incidence of some of these issues, which is why the relief nursery has been such a help out there.
Mhm. Yeah, so kind of an interesting chart. I think it came through to all of our emails, so
Yeah.
I encourage you to look at that. And then final announcement for me, I spoke with Commissioner Tim Freeman yesterday as part of the ONC County group, and they're meeting today, which is conflicting with this one. That's why I couldn't be there, but he wanted to call and give me an update and just let me know that they are, that Rocky McVeigh is going to retire.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they are going to vote today on a new director for the UNC counties.
Big
So,
deal.
Wow.
came down to two candidates that were very highly qualified, but one clearly has more experience, is sort of ready to get the ground running. So they will be voting on that today.
Just wanted to add that this past Sunday, was a rededication of the Sheridan Firehouse. They had been
Mm.
stationed out where CTEC is. And now they're back in seismic upgrades and lots of volunteer support and a great team of volunteers out there. So that was nice to
Yeah.
see. Also, we had a lady come before us last week who had some concerns regarding her
Yeah.
Mhm.
situation with the Affordable Housing Corporation under the auspices of Housing Authority. And at our board meeting, we were able to, I appreciated the board is going to continue to look at ways that they can address this. It's very complicated and
Yeah.
it's not a quick fix. And so there are no guarantees, but I appreciate the fact that they're really going the extra mile to
Great.
address this.
That's good to hear.
The other thing is an update on the home ownership rehab project, the Lafayette Common Wall project in Lafayette has begun. And also they're still working on finalizing the sale of the Dayton Ranch home. And a couple of other highlights regarding youth outreach. At YCAP, they had some interactions with 61 youth during the month of August. 11 of them were homeless and runaways. And they were able to shelter them in 4 of them in the transitional living program, which is really huge. They're going to be working on quotes for contractors for the McMinnville Youth Outreach space. That's going to be the drop-in center in McMinnville at the HHS building. And hopefully they've hired a staff member who's going to be able to basically just address that particular site. The other thing is I had a chance to go to the Health and Human Services, the new facility in Newburgh, and it's beautiful and staff is very appreciative of having some nice digs, because if you compare that to the office that they were in, trying to see clients, it was really difficult. So I appreciate all the work that's being done out there. I did notice when I walked in and I asked our director about this, I said, so we have staff that are sitting there in masks in a cubicle in the front office. And my understanding is that CDC no longer recommends universal masking. So I have concerns about that requirement for masking. And she did point out that this is not a CDC requirement. It's an Oregon OSHA requirement. And that Oregon OSHA has had a public comment period, which I believe is closed now, regarding the universal masking in healthcare facilities, which this is considered. So hopefully they will listen to folks who have some concerns about that requirement and allow it to be optional. Think about staff and folks who are sitting there all day long. So anyway, so I appreciate her clarification on that. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I have, I mentioned the public lands needs assessment that was going on by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and we met with them. They got back to us based upon the list of roads that we have that are leading to public lands that have some kind of access issue. And DOT indicated that there may actually be, in addition to kind of one-time improvement projects, there is the ability to get ongoing maintenance covered. So a couple of those roads would be like Old Railroad Grade that goes up to public land and is heavily used by log trucks. And then the other one would be High Heaven Road, which is a unique one to us, and that we've provided funding for it. And so then being able to have the federal government do the funding for the maintenance of that seems like it would be a nice thing to have happen, but stay tuned on that.
So 40 grand back in the coffers.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's there if we use it, right? It comes into it. The other thing I wanted to note was, I'm not sure if you had seen that the Multnomah County has opted into the program where they do, where the state allows a $50,000 first assessed value of $50,000 for manufactured homes that are on rental land to be exempt from property taxes. Assessor and I talked about, do we have that? No, we don't, because the legislature only applied that option to counties that are over, I think it was like 350,000 people. And so he and I talked about just a little bit about what it would look like to encourage the legislature to extend the option to counties that are smaller than that. So I was just thinking about your comments about Yamhill County by the numbers, and I wanted to put that out there that if there was interest from the board, I can work with the assessor and with legislators to get that piece of legislation moved forward to include the option for counties that are smaller to opt in. Just want to put that out there. Along those lines, though, Pioneer Park Estate in Lafayette, the residents are moving forward with attempting to purchase the property from the owner who was looking to sell it. We had talked about that a little while ago, and they're going to be challenged to afford that because it's a big investment to also buy the land under your home. So a consideration is that right now that law that only applies to large counties also only applies to folks who own their property or own their manufactured home but don't own the land underneath it. So just some considerations, because it does have the potential to really help folks in our county who are in that it's stable, but it's also precarious.
Well, and thank you for that. But I also want to make sure folks know that there is the CDBG Manufactured Home Project where Housing Authority for Housing Corporation is helping with construction contracts to rehab and to improve some of the situations in some of these manufactured homes are really pretty dire, and so they're able to offer those contracts. And now they've got about 91,000 out there for construction. So helpful.
That's right. That's a really good point.
Are you aware of any, because I think the LC deadline was last Friday. Are you aware of anybody that drafted legislation?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's other avenues beyond that, but
I think there are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
I'm going to do a little bit of
sounds-
reach out to some legislators and see
that sounds good.
Maybe
what it looks
Monday
like.
at the district meeting, we can, just bring it up.
Get
Maybe
the,
it's
I think
something
getting
from-
the temperature of the room as far as other counties.
Yeah.
My understanding is that counties and AOC was hesitant to sign on to including all counties because they wanted to make sure that a may doesn't become a shall,
Okay.
so that it would be up to each individual county to opt into it.
Okay.
So that was the initial hesitation. That's my
So
understanding.
the law is the first $50,000 of value is exempt from tax.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it used to be that it was 38,000 and everything over that. If you were above the $38,000 line, then you paid the whole tax as though it was from 0 to 38,000. It was amended in 2021, I believe, to be for the value over that. So if your home is assessed at 60,000, then you're paying an assessed rate for $10,000 as opposed to for 60,000, because it used to be you're either in or out.
And maybe another LC might be, we've had this situation here in Yamhill County for
Yes.
many years, is that a manufactured home be assessed as personal property, not real property.
Yeah.
And I think there's a really good case for it. And we've gone rounds and it's gone to the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
But I think when you think about it being an affordable living option for folks, and then you add real estate tax and property tax instead of personal tax, it becomes even less affordable.
Right. And that might be like a parallel,
Right.
right? Where, if there was success with the exemption, then you wouldn't need to worry about the personal versus real property.
Right.
But you're right that allowing somebody to take the real property tax rate is another way of doing it.
Yeah.
And they're very simple changes, right?
Mhm, I think.
That
so.
would have a big impact for people
Mhm.
who are right on the edge
Mhm.
of affording their homes.
Well, and anymore, those manufactured homes are going for $200,000. So
Yeah.
it's
Yep. So I wanted
Awesome.
to bring that forward as a, to see, but I think you're right that talking to District 6 would be really good.
Yeah, start there. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
okay. Great, sounds good. Any other announcements, commissioners or Ken and Christian? Okay. Looks like we are wrapped up and we'll close the Yamo County Board of Commissioners formal and informal session for September 29th, 2022. It is 10:56. Thank you.